Hi there, it's Tash, and today I hope that you enjoy my dewy, glowy makeup look, as it is about 32 degrees and about 80% humidity, and I still do not own an air conditioner. But other than to complain about the horrendous weather, I am here to do a review thingo on The Ethics of Authenticity by Charles Taylor. This is a work of philosophy, and this video is largely going to be a paraphrase of the content, much like my Freud video, but I enjoy talking about books like that, so that's the way I'm going to do this. Anyways, so The Ethics of Authenticity is a little baby of a book. It's only about 150 pages long, which is shocking for a work of philosophy. And it's based off a series of lectures Charles Taylor did for, I think, a Canadian radio show series or something. It was published in about 1990 or so, and it is extraordinarily easy to read. The writing is very simple, very straightforward. It is very easy to read and very inviting if you don't want to spend 8 million years decoding a piece of highly academic and alienating piece of writing. So this book is about the problems of modernity, and I'm sure that most of you are aware of what those are probably going to be. Taylor explicitly deals with 3 different issues of modernity, 2 of which I feel sort of consequences of the first point, and that first point is the hyper individualism in modern Western society. This has led to what Taylor calls the culture of narcissism, wherein people view happiness and fulfillment as something that can only be for the self and only come from the self. And this really kind of falls in line with the postmodern philosophies of the self, wherein to be happy and to be fulfilled and be truly authentic, you need to break ties with everyone and everything around you and create your own life, and all that needs to come from purely you. And this leads you to disregard everyone and everything around you, which leaves you rather alienated. This self-creation is not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. Instead of overtly criticizing or endorsing this way of life and individualization and needing to forge your own identity, Taylor thinks that this search of creation and this hyper-individualization is us attempting to live a life that is meaningful and to live a life that is authentic. And obviously this is a nice thing to do, but Taylor thinks that we have kind of become a little misguided in our attempts to follow it, as Taylor thinks that to live a life of authenticity, yes, often you do need to break with traditions, and you do need to assert yourself, and you need to cut ties. But you also need to ground yourself in the people and the places around you. It is from these intersubjective, interpersonal relationships that we draw meaning and value. So to actually live a life of authenticity, you need both individualization, and you need to value yourself, and you need to a certain extent, create yourself. But you also need to be rooted in the people and the places around you to give your life meaning. But under the influence of postmodernism and industrialization that push us towards hyper-individualization, we have forgot to form these relationships with the people and the places and the organizations around us, which has then led us to use instrumental reason, which we know can have truly horrendous effects. But if you don't value anyone or anything outside of you, everything and every place you interact with is going to be tainted by your own self-fulfillment, and you will cease to view the people and the places around you as ends in themselves, because the only end that you recognize is yourself. So these 2 things leave us rather alienated, which then leads to the 3rd issue, which is the passivity in the public sphere. And a lot of this is not having any interest in the public sphere, because the public sphere is something that is larger than us, And as an individual who is hyper-individualized, you are not concerned with what is outside of you. And even if you were concerned, these larger transcendent issues are transcendent because they require more than one person, they require collective action. But because our hyper-individualization has left us so alienated, it is hard to rally movements in the public sphere. And because we have all these forces around us that again lead us to hyper-individualization. So if we do nothing and if we don't fight to forge these relationships and to forge meaning in our lives, we will become further and further alienated, and we will become further and further employers of instrumental reason, and the public sphere will slip further from our grasp and our control, which is something that is bad. And Taylor considers this whole string of events to be something of a crisis of 1990. I feel like there has been a resurgence of protest culture in the current era. But while reading this, I was consistently struck by how attacked I felt and how applicable it still largely was to contemporary life. Well, I don't think that what Taylor said and what Taylor critiques is anything that's particularly new in regards to like pre-existing works of philosophy, but it was a really interesting experience to have it all laid bare in front of me in a really accessible manner and in a way that presents itself as overtly applicable to contemporary life to a certain extent, to the extent that this liberal neutrality is still in play. But it was really interesting, and I only gave it 4 stars only because I don't think it was particularly new and particularly dramatic, but it was still good. It was still worth 4 stars and still worth looking into, I think, if it interests you. Yeah, at first I wasn't a huge fan of it, but it's been about 2 months since I read it and I keep thinking about it. So yeah. Anyways, that's it from me. I hope I made sense. Probably not, but goodbye.